The twin suns burned over the endless desert. Heat shimmered on the horizon, making the sand look like liquid fire. Wind carried fine dust that whispered across the empty land. In that silence, a single figure walked. He was human, dressed in armor worn from travel, his steps steady as if he had crossed worse places than this. His name was Marcus, a soldier without an army, a wanderer who had survived battles most men would never believe. Far in the distance, hidden between the jagged cliffs, a group of alien warriors waited. Their skin was the color of stormlit skies, their eyes sharp like blades, and their weapons gleamed with golden light. Among them stood their commander, a young woman known only as Kalira. She was fierce, beautiful, and deadly, with hair like silver fire flowing down her back. Her spear pulsed with energy, a weapon passed down through generations, bound by the laws of her people. Kalira had been told of humans fragile, reckless creatures who did not know their place in the galaxy. Yet the one who walked toward her now did not look fragile. He walked without fear, even as he entered the heart of her territory. Her warriors shifted uneasily, for they felt something strange about this man. He was not like the others they had captured before. Marcus stopped. A short distance away, sand swirling around his boots. He raised his eyes to meet Kalira's. For a long moment, neither spoke. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Kalira stepped forward, her voice clear and sharp as steel. "You trespass in sacred lands, human. You will not leave alive." Marcus did not flinch. His voice was calm, steady, like someone who had faced death too many times to fear it anymore. "I did not come here to bow," he said. "If you wish to stop me, then try." Her warriors hissed in anger, some raising their weapons, but Kalira lifted her hand. The old law demanded a test of strength. When pride was challenged, she would face him herself. Her eyes narrowed as she lifted her spear, its golden blade catching the light of the suns. Sparks shimmered along its edge. Marcus simply stood, his hands at his sides, watching. With a cry that echoed against the cliffs, Kalira hurled the spear. It cut through the air, a streak of fire aimed at his heart. The desert seemed to roar with its passing. Every warrior expected the human to be torn apart in an instant, but Marcus did not move until the last possible moment. His hand shot out. Faster than the eye could follow, and with a crack of power, he caught the spear. The weapon trembled in his grip, its energy biting at his skin, but he held it firm. The desert fell silent again. Every alien warrior froze. Kalira's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. It was impossible. No human could withstand that weapon, let alone stop it barehanded. Yet there he stood, holding her ancestral spear, the golden light dancing. Between his fingers, Marcus looked at the weapon, then back at her. His expression was calm, almost unshaken. "Is this what you call a warning?" he asked. Kalira's warriors dropped to their knees in shock, some whispering old words. They all knew the law. It was written into their very culture, if one caught the spear of challenge, the warrior who threw it became bound to that person for life. It was a law older than memory, one that even Kalira could not deny. Her heart pounded, fury and disbelief mixing in her chest. She had wanted to kill him, to show her strength, but now the ancient code had spoken. She was his. Kalira's voice shook as she stepped closer, her eyes burning with anger and something else she could not name. "By law, I belong to you," she whispered, each word like poison on her tongue. Marcus did not smile, did not gloat. He simply placed the spear in the sand between them and said quietly, "Then let the law bind us both. But I did not come here for chains." The desert wind rose again, carrying their silence across the dunes. In that moment, an unexpected war had begun, not of blades and fire, but of pride, honor, and destiny. Kalira stood frozen as the desert winds whipped her hair across her face. Around her, her warriors stared at the human in disbelief. Their sacred law was clear. Once the spear was caught, its thrower was bound. No one had ever believed a human could achieve such a thing. Yet Marcus now stood with the weapon in his hand, its glow dimming as if even the spear itself had accepted him. Kalira's jaw tightened. Rage burned in her chest, but beneath it was something worse: shame. She was a commander, chosen by her people to defend their lands. Now she had been defeated not by death or dishonor, but by law. The very law she had sworn to uphold now forced her into servitude to an alien. Her second in command, a tall warrior with a scar across his cheek, hissed at her. "Commandress, this cannot stand. He is human, weak. Break him and the law will be forgotten." But Kalira knew better. The law was older than any one leader. If she defied it, the clans would turn on her. Even if she killed Marcus now, her people would see it as betrayal of tradition. That shame would stain her family forever. She could not risk it. Marcus studied their faces, his eyes calm and steady. He saw the confusion, the anger, and the fear. Slowly, he pushed the spear into the sand so that it stood upright between them. "I don't want your people as slaves," he said. "I came here searching for truth. If this law binds us, then it binds us, but I will not abuse it." His words unsettled the warriors more than threats would have. They had expected arrogance, expected him to gloat and claim their leader as his possession. Instead, he spoke with quiet strength, as though he had no need to prove himself. Kalira's heart twisted with anger at his calmness. Did he pity her? Did he think himself noble? She stepped forward, her silver hair flowing in the harsh wind, and grabbed the spear. Her hand brushed his for a moment, the energy between them sparking in the air. "You may think this is mercy," she said coldly, "but you do not understand what you've done. By law, I belong to you. My life, my honor, even my command bound to you. You have stolen everything from me." Marcus looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I didn't steal. You threw it." The words cut deeper than a blade. She turned from him, unable to speak, fury and humiliation burning her throat. Her warriors lowered their eyes, some even bowing slightly toward Marcus. The law demanded respect. As night approached, the desert cooled, and the group made camp among the rocks. Marcus sat apart from them, sharpening a blade with slow, steady strokes. He had learned long ago never to sleep too deeply in hostile company. Yet he felt no fear. Something told him Kalira would not strike, not yet. She sat near the fire, her warriors watching her carefully. Her pride demanded she kill him. Her honor demanded she obey the law. Her heart felt torn between the two. She looked across the flames at the human. His face was scarred, his armor old, but his eyes burned with a quiet fire that unsettled her more than any battle had. One of her younger warriors whispered, "Commandress, what will you do? You cannot serve him." Kalira clenched her fists. "No, I will find a way. If the law binds me, then I will twist it. He may think me his forever, but I will make him regret ever touching my spear." The fire crackled, throwing sparks into the night. Marcus, hearing the faint edge of her voice, carried by the wind, allowed himself a faint smile. He knew the war between them had only begun. The night passed under a sky filled with two moons. The desert was quiet, but not peaceful. Every warrior stayed alert, eyes shifting between their commander and the human who had caught her spear. The old law pressed on them like a weight they could not shake. At dawn, Marcus was already awake, standing at the edge of the camp, watching the horizon. His posture was calm but ready, as if he had trained his body to survive anywhere. Kalira rose from where she had sat all night without sleep. Her pride had not allowed her rest. She approached him, her voice sharp. "Why are you here, human? No one crosses this desert without purpose. Tell me what you seek." Marcus turned slowly, his eyes steady. "I am looking for something your people guard. Old knowledge. A truth buried in your lands." Her jaw tightened. "Our knowledge is not for outsiders. You have no right to it. You tried to kill me for crossing your lands, he said evenly. Now your law binds you to me. Maybe that law has its reasons. Maybe the truth I seek is part of it. Kalira's chest burned with anger. His words carried weight she did not want to admit. Still, she spat back. Do not think I will serve you gladly. I will walk beside you because the law commands it. Not because you have earned it. The human only nodded. I don't need gladness, I need honesty. Walk beside me, and we will see what fate decides. Her warriors watched with unease as their commander followed the human into the desert. To refuse him would break the law. To obey him felt like betrayal. They had no choice but to march behind them, every step filled with tension. The desert stretched endlessly, dunes rising and falling like waves of an ocean. Heat shimmered in the distance, and the air itself seemed to press down on their bodies. Marcus moved with steady rhythm, conserving energy, while some of the warriors struggled. Kalira noticed, though she said nothing. It angered her more that he walked with ease, as though this wasteland obeyed him. Hours later, a sandstorm rose suddenly from the horizon. The wind screamed, whipping the sand into violent clouds that stung their skin. The warriors pulled their cloaks tight, struggling to see. Marcus lifted his arm, shielding his face, but he kept walking, guiding them toward the dark shape of a canyon. Kalira shouted over the storm, "You'll get us all killed." "The storm will bury us." Marcus shook his head. "Follow me. There's shelter ahead." Something in his tone made even her hesitate. Against her pride, she followed. The others had no choice but to obey. The wind tore at them, sand cutting across their faces, but through the chaos Marcus led them into the canyon. Inside, the storm's fury was muffled by high walls of stone. Warriors collapsed, coughing and exhausted. Kalira stood staring at Marcus, her silver hair tangled, her armor coated in sand. She hated the gratitude rising in her chest. She hated that once again, he had saved them. "You knew where to go," she said, her voice low but sharp. "How?" Marcus sat against the stone wall, his eyes calm. "I've walked many deserts. This is not the first storm I've survived." Kalira clenched her fists. He spoke like it was nothing, yet her people would have been lost without him. She wanted to curse him, to deny his strength, but the law chained her tongue. That night, as the storm howled above, the warriors whispered among themselves. Some spoke of Marcus with awe, others with suspicion. One voice rose above the rest, the scarred warrior, her second in command. "He is not our leader," he growled. "But the law binds our commander to him. If he continues to lead, our people will begin to see him as more than human. We must act before it is too late." Kalira heard his words, though she did not answer. Deep inside, she felt torn. Every step with Marcus deepened her conflict. The law demanded loyalty. Her pride demanded rebellion. And somewhere beneath both, a strange, unwanted respect was beginning to grow. The storm raged outside the canyon for 2 days. Sand and wind howled like angry spirits, sealing the warriors in with the human who now held their fate. The fire in the center of their camp flickered weakly, shadows stretching across the canyon walls. Kalira sat apart, her silver hair tangled and her spear resting across her knees. She stared into the flames, her thoughts heavy. Every glance at Marcus stung her pride. He had caught her weapon. He had led them through the storm. And now, the whispers among her warriors were louder, some questioning if their ancient law had chosen him for a reason. The scarred second in command finally stepped forward, his voice deep and sharp. "Commandress, we cannot let this continue. If you submit to the human, our people will see weakness. Let me kill him. The law cannot bind the dead." Kalira's eyes snapped to him, burning like ice. "Do not speak of breaking the law again. You know what it would mean. It would destroy us." The warrior snarled but lowered his head. The others fell silent, but the tension was thick. Marcus, who had been sharpening his blade nearby, raised his eyes. He had heard every word. "Your people are restless," Marcus said quietly. "They think killing me will free them. They're wrong. Breaking your own law will tear your clan apart faster than any war." Kalira's hand tightened on her spear. "And what do you care if we are torn apart?" "I don't," he admitted. "But I care about the truth I came here for. If your clan falls into chaos, I will never find it." Her chest tightened at his calm honesty. He wasn't pretending to be their savior. He was here for his own mission, yet somehow he carried himself with more honor than many of her kind. That thought unsettled her more than his strength. On the third night, the storm broke. Stars returned to the sky, sharp and cold above the canyon. The group began their march again at dawn, the desert washed clean by wind. The silence was heavier. Then by midday, they reached the ruins, an ancient city half buried in sand. Stone towers crumbled like bones, symbols carved into their walls glowing faintly in the sunlight. Kalira felt her chest tighten. This was the heart of her people's secrets, the place even she had sworn never to enter without the blessing of the elders. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes scanning the ruins with strange familiarity. "This is it. The place I've been searching for." Her voice was sharp. "No outsider may walk here. These ruins are sacred." He looked at her, his gaze calm but unyielding. "And yet, here I stand with you at my side. The law brought me here." Her words died in her throat. She could not deny it. As they entered the ruins, whispers rose among the warriors. The stones seemed alive, humming faintly under their feet. Strange symbols glowed brighter when Marcus passed, as though they recognized him. Kalira's heart pounded. This was no accident. In the central hall, half collapsed and filled with shifting light, Marcus touched one of the carvings. The glow surged, illuminating the entire chamber. The warriors gasped, shielding their eyes. Kalira felt her knees weaken. "This place remembers you," she whispered. "But how?" "You are not of us." Marcus's face was unreadable, but his voice was low, steady. "Because humans were part of this long before your people believed. The truth is buried here, and I intend to uncover it." Her warriors trembled, fear and awe mixing in their voices. The scarred second-in-command growled, stepping forward. "No, this is forbidden. He is not chosen. He is a thief." He raised his blade to strike Marcus down, but Kalira's spear moved first. The golden point blocked his strike, sparks flying. Silence fell as the warriors stared in shock. Kalira's voice shook with fury. "He has claimed my spear. By law, he is mine. If you raise your blade against him again, you raise it against me." The second-in-command froze, his rage twisting his scarred face. Slowly, he lowered his weapon, but his eyes burned with hatred. Marcus glanced at Kalira, surprise flickering in his expression. She had defended him, even against her own people. For the first time, she wondered if her loyalty to the law was shifting into something she did not yet understand. The silence after Kalira blocked the strike was heavier than stone. Her warriors stared, their faith in her shaken. For generations, their law had guided them, but never before had it forced a commander to defend a human. The scarred second-in-command lowered his blade slowly, but his eyes promised that this was not the end. Marcus stood in the glowing chamber, his hand still resting on the ancient carvings. The light pulsed faintly under his touch, like a heartbeat. He turned toward Kalira, his voice calm. "This place responds to me. That means your history is tied to mine. Whatever you've been guarding, it belongs to both of us." Her jaw tightened. She wanted to deny it, to call him a thief, but the walls glowed brighter whenever he stepped closer. The ruins themselves refused to listen to her, yet they obeyed him. Her chest ached with confusion. Her warriors shifted uneasily. One of the younger ones whispered, Maybe he truly is chosen. The scarred warrior spat on the floor. Chosen? He is human, weak, fragile. He does not deserve to stand here. Kalira turned sharply, her voice like a blade. Enough. The law binds me to him. And by that same law, you will obey. The scarred warrior's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing more. They pressed deeper into the ruins. Faded murals lined the walls, showing tall alien figures standing beside humans fighting together against shadowy enemies. Marcus studied them with grim recognition. He had seen similar stories in fragments on other worlds, whispered in human archives no one believed. He touched one mural, his fingers tracing the figure of a human raising a blade of light. This isn't just your history, he said softly. It's ours. Once we stood together. Kalira's heart pounded. Her people had always told tales of a forgotten age, when they had allies stronger than the stars themselves. But she had never believed those allies could be human. She looked at Marcus, her silver eyes burning. If this is true, then why did we forget? Marcus's gaze was steady. Because someone wanted you to. The chamber shook suddenly, a low rumble echoing through the ruins. Dust fell from the ceiling, and cracks spread along the walls. The warriors raised their weapons nervously, their eyes darting in fear. Marcus stepped back from the mural. We're not alone here. A deep growl rose from the shadows at the far end of the hall. Shapes emerged, creatures of stone and metal, guardians built to protect the ruins from intruders. Their eyes glowed red as they advanced, claws scraping against the floor. The warriors shouted, forming a defensive circle. Kalira raised her spear, its golden light flaring bright. She cast a glance at Marcus. For the first time she did not see him as an enemy, but as the only one who could stand beside her in this fight. The first guardian lunged, its massive claw slashing down. Marcus moved like lightning, rolling beneath the strike and driving his blade into a joint of the creature's armor. Sparks burst, and the guardian shrieked before collapsing. Kalira leapt beside him, her spear slicing through another guardian. With a flash of golden fire. For a brief moment, their movements were in perfect rhythm, human and alien fighting as one. Just as the murals had shown, the warriors roared, emboldened by their leader's strength, and joined the battle. The canyon echoed with the clash of metal and the cries of war. When the last guardian fell, shattered across the stone floor, silence returned. The warriors panted, their armor scorched and dented, but alive. Marcus wiped blood from his arm, his chest rising steady and strong. Kalira looked at him across the battlefield of broken guardians. Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to hate him, but in this moment, she could not. The law had bound her to him, yet battle had shown her why. He was not fragile. He was not weak. He was the kind of warrior her people's stories spoke of, one who changed the tide of destiny. The scarred second in command broke the silence, his voice filled with venom. This cannot continue. If the ruins honor him, then our people will abandon us for him. He will not only own you, Commandress, he will rule us all. Kalira turned to silence him, but deep inside, fear twisted her heart. Because part of her wondered if it was true. The broken bodies of the guardians lay scattered across the glowing hall. Smoke and sparks drifted upward, vanishing into the cracks in the ceiling. The warriors stood in silence, shaken and exhausted, their eyes fixed on Marcus. He was breathing hard, but his stance was steady, his blade slick with oil and dust from the fallen constructs. Kalira felt her chest tighten as she looked at him. For the first time in her life, she did not know whether she had lost or won. The law had bound her to him, but battle had shown her something even stronger than law, respect. The scarred second in command stepped forward, his voice loud and raw. Commandress, this ends now. He is not our leader. He is not of our blood. Kill him, and we will be free. The warriors murmured, torn between tradition and fear. Kalira raised her spear, her eyes blazing. The glow of its golden edge filled the chamber. For a moment, it seemed she might agree with him, but then she turned, planting the spear's point into the stone between them. "No," she said firmly. "He is mine, and by law, I am his. If you raise your hand against him, you raise it against me." Gasps filled the chamber. The scarred warrior's face twisted with fury, but he dared not strike her. Slowly, with a growl of rage, he stepped back. Marcus's eyes met Kalira's. There was no triumph in his gaze, only quiet understanding. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon. "I never wanted slaves or servants," he said softly. "I came for the truth. And now I have it. Once, humans and your people fought side by side. We were never enemies. That memory was stolen from both of us." Kalira's hand trembled on her spear. She thought of the murals, of the way they had fought together against the Guardians, and of the stories whispered by the elders. She thought of how the ruins had responded to him, as though the past itself recognized him. At last, she lowered her eyes. "Then perhaps the law did not bind me in shame," she whispered. "Perhaps it bound me so I would see." The warriors shifted, their whispers soft and uneasy. Some bowed their heads toward Marcus, not as slaves to a master, but as soldiers before an equal. The law had not broken them. It had given them a reason to follow. Outside, dawn painted the desert in gold. The storm was gone, and the sand stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Marcus stood at the entrance of the ruins, looking into the light. Kalira walked beside him, her silver hair glowing in the rising sun. "You caught my spear," she said quietly. "By our law, I am yours. But now I ask, not as law, but as choice. What will you do with me?" Marcus turned, his scarred face calm, his voice steady. "Walk with me. Not as mine, not as bound, but as a warrior beside me. If our people once stood together, then perhaps they can again." Her heart pounded. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, fierce smile. "Then I will walk beside you. And together, we will remind the galaxy of what was forgotten." The warriors behind them raised their weapons, not in rebellion, but in salute. For in that moment, they felt history turning. The desert wind rose, carrying their voices across the endless sands. A human and an alien, bound first by law, now by choice, stepping into a future neither had expected but both would claim. And so, what began with a thrown spear ended with an alliance written not in shame but in destiny.